What a time to be alive. For one thing, our life this past year has not been boring. That is if you have not been paralyzed in fear the entire time. It's amazing to me how the New World Order agenda with all its horrors has been a wake-up call for so many who most likely would have never woken up. Look around your friend circles in the past year or so, and the new ones who have unplugged. Do you think they would have if the threat and the actual suffering didn't occur? Transhumanism. Has it already began? And is our future being set to live as part human and part artificial intelligence? Yes, I just said that. Are we on our way to become unknowingly a cyborg society? Is nanotechnology already manipulating our biological bodies? It's hard to believe, but I have to tell you, the evidence is pretty overwhelming when you just do a little bit of a deep dive into the honest intel that is out there. Just because you don't hear it on everyday mainstream media, it doesn't make it less real. Well, to further stretch your open minds, we'll be discussing with high-level MKUltra survivor Elise about technology that actually has been embedded in her since the 1970s, and how it works, and what we can expect to experience in a transhuman world. We'll also be speaking with author and researcher Elana Freeland, who will be sharing how we have been and continue to be in the ever-assembling transhumanism experiment, as well as the role of the Internet of Things and how it interacts with ingredients of chemtrails in securing our fate as technologically enslaved humans. I know you may feel like we have been living in a Star Trek episode after this information you will hear, but I can assure you the agenda of the ones behind transhumanism is not the positive future Spock and Kirk portrayed on TV. So listen carefully and with an open mind, because what you may hear can give you advance notice of what is coming and how to prepare for impact. For I see nothing that can stop the elite's full dominant spectrum as we wake up to their plan that has us divided and in the dark to this dangerous experiment we find ourselves in presently. Unless God shows up soon, or God wakes us up within, is being plugged into the Matrix now a one-way ticket to the Borg Collective, with no beam me up Scotty last-minute call to save the day. Welcome to Frequency Wars.
The time to defy the modern agenda is now. UI Media Network presents Frequency Wars, an explosive new series that examines contentious subject matter pursuing us beyond our five senses. This weekly series discovers the intricacies of imposing issues that challenge our daily existence and question humanity. Provocative and intriguing, we confront the issues and conflicts affecting us on a global scale and beyond. The commentary and guests will shift the paradigm and defy the status quo. What will you believe? Welcome to Frequency Wars, the next revolution. And here's your host, challenging you to question everything, Tim Ray.
Hello, I'm Tim Ray, and welcome to Frequency Wars. As we go down the rabbit hole, it's easy to come to the conclusion that we are way over our heads with this evil agenda that's been going on. You have to pinch yourself daily just to make sure you're simply real. And I'm sure with many, you will wish you took the blue pill to go back into the Matrix with the other non-participating characters. However, truth and following your truth as a way of keeping you in the game. Well, with that said and that knowledge, let's prepare you for what the Unplugged knows to be true to set the stage of how transhumanism could possibly be a reality we find ourselves in today.
There are two forms of government in the United States. There is the visible government, the White House, Congress, courts, state legislatures, and governorships, and the invisible government or deep state, where anonymous technocrats, intelligence operatives, generals, bankers, corporations, lobbyists, manage foreign and domestic policy regardless of which political party holds a majority. The most powerful and important organs in the invisible government are the nation's bloated and unaccountable intelligence agencies. They are the vanguard of the invisible government. They oversee a vast black world tasked with maintaining the invisible government's lock on power. They spy on and smear domestic and foreign critics, fix elections, bribe, extort, torture, assassinate, and flood the airwaves with black propaganda. And they are impervious to the chaos and human destruction they leave in their wake.
Wow, helps explain much of the chaos we see happening that just doesn't add up, and why we can't live simple lives raising our kids. So the deep state is in charge, and the many common enforcers are the three-letter agencies. The more known one is the CIA. And what's the old CIA saying? Deny everything, admit nothing, and make counter-accusations. This is the deep state's motto they live and die by, and you see how that direct contamination controls the mainstream media.
We believe that we are in control of the media that we consume because we have the power to change the channel. But no matter what channel you are on, the programs that you are watching are programming you. Programming your values, programming your beliefs, programming your ideas, and the scariest part of all, they are programming the decisions you then make without you even realizing it. Here are two things that you need to know about the mainstream media. 1, the news is a multi-billion-dollar industry. 2, the media companies choose a handful of stories to cover each and every single day. That means that there's a 24-hour slot that needs to be filled with content. And guess what? The narrative is controlled in order to create a reaction in you. A reaction of fear, a reaction of doubt, a reaction of uncertainty. The reason for this is simple. Your brain is wired to react to danger and fear. It's a basic survival instinct. The media companies know this, and they are intentionally tricking you, controlling you, and manipulating you.
You think you may need to ease off on the TV usage, or at least the news, perhaps? Well, this is the resulting propaganda in each action you catch each day. You are being programmed by the news.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about the trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Scary how we incorporate their lies and deceit into our belief system without ever realizing it may be false in an agenda to ultimately change your behavior to do what the deep state wishes. Here's one obvious conditioned response we see today from the modification media machine of fear we allow ourselves to be programmed daily for hours at a time.
Why are you wearing a mask outside?
It feels weird not to. I just like it. I got used to it. I don't mind wearing it.
I guess I'm just used to it, I guess.
I just have it on. I forgot it was on. You forgot it was on? Are you vaccinated? Why are you wearing a mask outside? What's your thought process? No comment.
I just feel like I have to wear it. I don't know why. I just want to wear it.
Yeah, I guess like my friends wear them, so I'm like, if I might as well just too.
I feel like I won't take off my mask until everybody does.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just there's a lot of anxieties with taking the mask off, for the first time. So it's
because
probably,
it's been so long.
Yeah, it's like a social anxiety at this point.
It's just mental well-being and stuff. I personally still wouldn't want to take the risk anyway, and I don't trust anyone else. So I'm just doing it for my own
Even if
health.
the science said it was like basically impossible, it still doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Extra precaution.
Because I want to protect others, and there's still risk no matter what. So it's also a little bit of a protest in a way.
The protest being
well, I shouldn't be given the privilege to not wear a mask.
Not only have I been double vaccinated, I had COVID.
So you're triple.
I'm triple.
So why? So why do you think you're doing it?
I think
it's virtually impossible to get coronavirus outside while you're vaccinated.
Oh, yeah. I think it's because I have been so infuriated at people who didn't wear a mask when the whole year. So it's like a display of, I still care.
Repetition, repetition, repetition. Fastest way to get someone to believe you. Can you see now how we are psychologically conditioned on mass levels to perform desired behaviors? Social conditioning, they call it. by simply making the decisions to allow harmful information to program ourselves to do what malintended others want us to do. Believe it or not, that's soft programming. How about hard, old school programming? Prior to nanotechnology, it's called trauma-based mind control. Well, we happen to have a guest who since birth was traumatized, faced ongoing brutal rapes, and had her brain split into countless personalities only to be programmed to become a sex assassin for the deep state to perform their evil deeds. She now, after decades of deprogramming, has integrated herself. Joining us now is MK Ultra survivor Elise E., who's also an author and has been on our show in the past. And I want to tell you all, if you haven't had a chance to look at our past shows with her series we did with her, you need to, because it was phenomenal of what it's like to experience trauma-based mind control and to live life and go through integration and to be where she is today. It's an incredible feat she has accomplished in her life. And she's here now joining us. Welcome.
Hi, Tim. It's good to see you again.
Same here. Same here. It's been way too long, and it's just fascinating your story. And I really hope the viewers go out and see what you went through, because I know you have a couple of books that are out, which we'll be showing here in the next clip. We're going to be talking about your story and the actual paperclip and MK Ultra program that they still have in the United States. They say they don't, but they do. And we'll get more into that. But in the meantime, what I really like to focus on this segment, if you don't mind, Elisa, is you mentioned back in the 70s, there was an implant, or some type of technological implant, a chip, let's say, embedded in you, or at least in your body somewhere, that actually was assisting with controlling you remotely, I would assume. Can you share your insight on that and what your experience was?
Sure. Yeah, very pertinent to these times, isn't it? Yes. Which I know you're going to get to later on. Back in my day, due to, I started deprogramming, officially deep deprogramming about 2008. I had a lot of breakthrough memory before then. So I was aware of things going on in my body. But it wasn't until quite a few years into deprogramming that one day after a bath, drying my hair, something came out of my ear. It was very hard and it bounced on the tile, and I knew immediately what it was. Not that it looked like anything that anyone had ever shown online, or what an RFID tag, those big ones they had with all the wires and all that, didn't look anything like that. But I knew what it was, and I hung on to it for a while. And then I moved, I changed states, and I just let some stuff go. I figured, who else is going to see it? And then about maybe 2 years after that, I had the same thing. I pulled one out of my neck. It had slowly surfaced. And when I dug it out, it was the exact same thing, but a smaller size. That was the back of my neck. And it turns out that those two locations are very common areas for implants. And I realized that in my day, they used to put in what they called body suits, which was a complete body makeup of implants in strategic locations to activate certain things, such as having some in the lower pelvic area, groin area for sexual stimulation. So you can imagine the various areas and what they could do. And they called them bodysuits. So I'm assuming that I had a bodysuit at one time based on the things that I felt and what has come out.
So how does it work, though, with the two-way communication? Because it's a control mechanism, apparently.
Absolutely.
And this is back in the 70s, which is crazy to think, and I can only imagine where they are today. But tell me how it works.
Right. Well, one of the things I discovered in deep deprogramming prior to knowing, understanding any of this, okay, see, I'm just a victim of it. I wasn't a programmer or a handler, I wasn't on the inside knowledge. So I spoke in very, very novice language, just, things like, okay, I have several memories of switching altars with no handler present. And for me, that was like, well, how does that work? And now I understand with the technologies that they were already into remote handling, meaning they could tap in from a distance. They could send me somewhere. I could change altars and without anyone present and go in and do whatever it was I was supposed to do.
So they could actually trigger your multiple alters without having an environmental experience for you to trigger it.
Exactly.
That's probably one of the main purposes for having that embedded.
Absolutely. And then there's also the aspect of certain capacities, abilities, which became very evident as I, popped up above the veil of mind control and began to get a semblance of myself and major self-awareness. What I noticed in deprogramming was that a lot of these enhanced certain abilities in me. And I have one very particular one from the 80s, maybe into the early 90s, of just getting up to go to work one day, stepping out of my place. It was an apartment in a courtyard. And I still can't describe the sensations well enough of how my hearing, my visual capacity was so profound that I stood there. I don't know how long, taking in everything. It was like I was on, this super high level of perception of everything. All tactical sensations, visual, audio. So
you're unconscious. You tapped into your other unconscious aspects of that sensation, right?
And this one was really interesting because I was in my front personality.
Okay.
So this was as things were bleeding through. So this was what I suspect was they were either tapping that on for some reason, or it belonged to one of my alters. And she was showing me, how that. So that's another aspect of these, I believe, of these implants or even the nanotech now, either to raise those abilities or completely lower them.
Well, that's just so disturbing because that was then, for the most part, they have the ability to actually control you, different parts of your body as well, and to not only trigger, like you said, the different personalities that were created through the trauma-based mind control and the horrific experiences you had. And for people to learn more, they need to check out your books as well as go back to our site and see your actual interviews. But so give us a little idea, because right now most people who are hip of what's going on, they're understanding that we are going into this transhumanism, and that this nanotechnology is real. People now are starting to get a taste of it on a mass level when they're realizing paper clips are sticking to their arms, and now that they're saying this is nanotechnology. Even Dr. Reagan from the Mayo Clinic saying we are using nanotechnology and particles. So this is this is actually happening. Now, they've had that experience before. Perhaps you could share with us what you believe, how this nanotechnology, this microscopic atomic level technology has been leveled up and advanced to the point where for these people who are getting this technology embedded, and even others, I guess, you could share your thoughts on that, how their experiences will be. How will they start losing control of their own choices and decisions?
Right. Ooh, that's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, to me, this toxic cocktail that they're putting in people's bodies is only one kind of the next level of what they've been doing for decades with chemtrails and, other vaccines, pushing the flu shot every year. It's encroached its way into our food source. It's in our food, it's in our air, it's in our water. So my opinion from understanding the people that I grew up with is that they don't come at something one time or from one angle. They come from a whole bunch of different angles, and it's always layered. And to me, that's what this toxic cocktail, I almost refuse to call it a vaccine.
It isn't.
Right? That's the next level. It's another level. I don't know what all they've got planned, but it's another level. So nanotech is in our bodies, all of our bodies. We've breathed it in, we've eaten it, we've drank it. If you have a little microscope, you could probably find a fiber sitting on top of your arm. And, everybody can, on your clothing and in your house. We've been inundated with it. What I would say is not only the things I spoke about as an MK Ultra slave, but consciousness. I think this is where they're really headed, is to take over, wipe out the consciousness of humanity, and what I see taking place, as so many of us do, and of course, from my perspective and my life, I see it as mind control, is that people out there are not thinking for themselves. They're following narratives that, without question, many people are also waking up. So I think the big goal of this, yes, they can enhance or dull certain abilities. They can make you sick. They can make you well. They can make you strong. They can make you weak. But I think ultimately we're talking about taking over the mind, taking over the free will.
So do you predict people start hearing voices? Because we're getting some anecdotal stories of people hearing music and there's no music being played anywhere. There are
This is interesting because that's really what you've heard of the targeted individual community.
Yes.
I'm the MK Ultra. Well, the targeted individual community is the next level of MK Ultra. I mean, it's on a massive scale, and they've been experimenting on these people for decades now, and now it's moving into. My opinion is it's moving into en masse, as I call it. It's moving into en masse. It's becoming a global. So the increments, my looking at it from my perspective, the increments of the technology are everything's getting smaller, faster, and broader. So in other words, it's smaller, you can't see it. It works faster. They don't have to do what they did to me anymore. They can just pick somebody out, and you're already an antenna. You've already been loaded. You've already been loaded up. And so it's a much quicker process for them. And
it's minus the trauma-based mind control, the torture of all that too, which unfortunately you and millions of others had to go through. So I guess on one level, this higher technology, people avoid that scenario. However, now you're looking at a mass level of cyborg-like type of control.
And if they don't know about this, when that voice comes in, or something bizarre is crawling, you feel crawling in your body. That's one of the main first symptoms. You'll feel the fibers moving around in your body. Ugh. It's a creepy crawly thing under the skin. But I mean, if you don't know what's going on, you are going to attribute this to something else. And if you're going to a doctor or a psychiatrist who is not on board, you're going to be medicated, which feeds big pharma. Yep. Which feeds the control mechanism. So yeah, it's scary that it's not out there enough yet, but it's happening. I think what we would call the normal people who just live their wonderful everyday lives, who have gotten vaccinated or know someone who's gotten vaccinated, are starting to ask the question, what the is going on? Right. That's the breaking of the reality for them. Is the chink in it.
So what's so disturbing about this is, and I'm so glad you mentioned that you're even talking about this, because if people, like you said, don't hear what you're saying, they're going to attribute to like, oh my God, I think I'm going crazy, and not realizing that this is a conspiratory, horrific, laid out plan to control you and make decisions for you. And so as people are going on this mass level, is there somehow a hive mentality that's being connected between different people on almost like naturally there's a telepathy between humans when they really study that, but we're talking on a technological level. Is that one of the goals, is to connect people on more of a high perspective if there's a two-way transmission going on with your controller?
Absolutely. And I saw the public version of this through what was called the Super Soldier program. And this was years ago when all these young people came forward with these stories of being super soldiers, and they were all psychic and they were giving readings. And this isn't genuine clairvoyance. This is BCI. This is brain computer interface. That's what we're looking at. And I have had in deep deprogramming very clear, once I lost all the fear, I became an observer. And I had some profound experiences. And one of them was that I was at one time hooked in with 5 men. We were a group. And after that, I had what I call a reverse hack to my Dr. Duncan. Dr. Robert Duncan calls them psychic warriors. Those are the people that are sitting at a system hooked up to you. It's your counterpart in some facility somewhere. And I actually had, Tim, a reverse hack one night where he was hooked up. There was this huge monitor. It wasn't like our computers. It was something completely. I figured out later, it was a readout of what was happening between us. It was a graph that was moving really fast from left to right. And I saw through him for about 2 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was during a time when they were experimenting with tapping me, and I knew what the scenario was. As I was getting ready to go to sleep, I got used to seeing what the scenario was on occasion. And I would even say to them, "What are we doing tonight?" And this one night, this interaction happened, and I got that 2-second view through him. And I read later, someone talked about that they're trying to work out the kinks because they don't want it to be able to be reversed from the victim through to the perpetrator. So
incredible. And that was then, and think what the technology advancement is today.
Well, that was only probably about 6 years ago.
Oh, wow. So
in deep programming, I became very aware of what they were doing. And so I began to observe, write it all down, and share it with people. From a very I just disconnected from all the emotional part of it. I wasn't afraid anymore. I became the watcher. And I'm just going to read a little list, the various things you can be tapped on. And I experienced this very clearly one night. I was very aware that they turned on the video, like video audio through my eyes, real time. So in other words, they're tapping in through my brainwave frequencies. It's going to a computer. This is in split second speed of light time. And they're real time looking at what I'm looking at and hearing what I'm hearing. And I remember sitting up in bed, and I just felt something in my mind's eye. And we scanned the room, and then it was off. And it was just like, okay, there it is. That's one of the
become the camera. You are the recorder.
Well, I was for I believe many years, because when I first woke up in 2008, 2009, when I spoke to the guys that I spoke to that helped me out, the first thing I said to them was, just assume everything we're doing here is being recorded. And I said, I know that sounds crazy. And they laughed and they said, no, it doesn't. So
it sounds so fantastic, honestly, Elise, that it almost reminds me of the aspect in the movie The Matrix when Mr. Smith was able to jump from one human to the next human to transpose into them. It's almost like they're going to utilize on this mass level humans to move their agenda, whatever it may be. So 2 last questions here. I know we got to get going here, but what are some examples that you can see that they'll be able to potentially do now with this nanotechnology in many of these humans, many of us, how they will utilize us going forward? For what purposes?
Mainly, I really think the main push is they're going to take away the ability to critically think, to connect spiritually, so that we become more and more entrenched than we already are, if you can imagine, in the material, physical, as opposed to being able to connect to God or whatever you refer to as God. And I will tell you, Tim, flat out that yes, you need to take care of your health and rest and eat properly, watch the foods you eat, get exercise. But the thing that works here, and the only thing that ultimately empowered me, was my connection to Christ. And I got to that. I tried everything, and I take really good care of myself physically as best that I can. But the inner life is the only solution now. I know how that must sound, but it truly is the only genuine protection, because They are bigger, badder, stronger, and they always will be until that shift into the spirit for numerous amounts of us happens. They lose all that power because everything they do is in lies, deception, and shadow. If you don't know your enemy, I've said this on the last shows, if you don't know your enemy, how on earth do you think you're going to overpower them or rise above them? We must educate ourselves on all of it, as painful as it is, because ultimately, when you come through that, you are truly empowered.
There you hear it, guys, from high-level MK Ultra survivor Elise E. and author. Incredible information. Thank God you're out here sharing this information now, Elisa. And we'll have you back on. We need to have you back on for a much longer period of time to be able to get it more deeper into some of the things that to help humanity as they experience this effect of the nanotechnology and the potential remote controlling and handling of people and their decisions. We need to have more people like you who've been there, who could give us advice and walk us through this and focus on what we can do. As you said, it's an inside job. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for what you guys do. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. High-level MK Ultra survivor Elise E., who was just here, and high-level means she's of the bloodline of the Satanic Cabal, a victim though, and I interviewed her also many years ago for a series on MK Ultra, which you could check out on our website, uimedianetwork.org, and look under Frequency Wars. I think there was 2 shows. One was the Lost Souls of Hollywood, and the other Sex Assassin Elise E. MK Ultra. Here is a clip of one of them. She discusses nanotechnology back then, and still many were not listening.
Well, I think it's possible, but I also have gotten ample evidence that, and this is something they can do to anybody on the street. They can create hallucinations at any moment.
Right.
Anywhere, anytime. As long as they have the brainwave activity mapped out, the neural system mapped out, they can go in anytime, anywhere. So I suspect that a lot of early on, there was a lot of physical interaction, and things needed to be present on occasion. But since I'm dealing with remote, at least from the 70s, I suspect a lot of this could have been done right into the mind.
Right.
And it's real. Let me tell you, when they do it, it's tangible for you. It's real. Visceral.
But do they have to have previous programming for it to be effective, and of course the chips technology put in, or can they now do it remotely with the cell towers and the metals in the air?
Oh yeah, no. Implants, as we think of them, RFIDs and so forth, those have been obsolete for decades. They're still there in many people, especially older models. And if you want to make the public believe they're required, then you can bring out that, people have implants. But the truth is, we're talking nanotech that's been dropped from the skies for 40, 50 years.
Sure. Wow. Yeah, that's just wrong on all levels. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
But back to your kill.
So I was claiming in early years, very early years, I was claiming nanobots, and people thought I was nuts.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And now it's like all over the place. It's out there.
Sure.
And some friends have come back and said, here you go. Here's the science article about what you were claiming.
Sure.
That made me sound crazy.
No, yeah. And it's coming full circle now, and there's a certain amount of appreciation of it now.
40 to 50 years we have been under this siege of nanotechnology from the sky? It's hard to believe. When you take into account our immunity that has been under attack for that long, as well as the attention deficit epidemic, perhaps connecting the dots is not so hard to do. So what is MK Ultra, which is code for Operation Paperclip?
Nazi scientists, some of them tied to war crimes, including horrific concentration camp experiments, brought to the U.S. in a secret program to advance American security interests during the Cold War. It sounds like the plot of a film drama, but it actually happened, and on a large scale. The story is told in the new book, Operation Paperclip. Author and journalist Annie Jacobson joins us now. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
So these were top scientists in the German war effort, sought out by the U.S. military as the war was coming to an end.
That's right. These were Hitler's top weapons makers, and Operation Paperclip became a classified military program to bring them to the United States. It also had a public face, so there was, on the one hand, the truth about the program kept secret, and on the other hand, the idea that we'll tell the public that these are the good Germans.
And, the good Germans, but they were dedicated Nazis, the ones you write about. We should say there are many, 1,600 in all, right?
Yes.
So 1,600 bad Germans, Nazis, working in the deep state here in the USA since World War II? Yes, this is all verifiable in fact. Just do your own research. But it makes you wonder about the Domestic Terrorist Act making its way through Congress that goes after white supremacy and Nazis. It actually says Nazis in the proposed legislation. You think they're following the CIA narrative of counter-accusations? Since it looks like the Nazis been part of the deep state for a long time now. What a setup, putting the fox in charge of the hen house. Well, back to Operation Paperclip. So how do they learn to mind control their subjects? And to what end?
So Gottlieb's idea was that before you could find a way to insert a new mind into somebody's brain, you first had to find a way to blast away the mind that was in there. You had to destroy a human psyche and a human soul and a human body if you could. Where do we start? Who's already an expert on this? Oh, the doctors in the Nazi concentration camps and those that worked in the Japanese vivisection shop up in Manchuria. So rather than hang those people, we decided we would hire them. And they became the basis of the American mind control program.
I just want to insert, because it's in your book. And we got their research, the slides that had the human tissue, which, as you point out in Japan, were often cut out of living human beings, you know.
We had a great excitement, actually, at the prospect of being able to find the results of lethal experiments. And the people who had conducted them became valued colleagues to the CIA doctors.
So to control these poor victims, they had to horrifically traumatize them to the point of shattering their minds just to be able to program them to commit these crimes they wanted done. Well, here is the end result of the damage, to just mention a few out of perhaps millions or more of these poor victims.
His objective was to gain control of my mind and train me to be a spy assassin. Dr. Green had electrodes on my body, including my head. He used what looked like an overhead projector and repeatedly said he was burning different images into my brain while a red light flashed aimed at my forehead. In between each sequence, he used electric shock on my body and told me to go deeper and deeper, while repeating each image would go deeper into my brain, and I would do whatever he told me to do. Dr. Green moved on to wanting me to kill dolls that looked like real children.
I became a pawn in a government scheme. His ultimate goal was mind control and to create the perfect spy, all for the use of chemicals, radiation, drugs, hypnosis, electric shock, isolation in tubs of water, sleep deprivation, brainwashing, verbal, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. I was exploited unwittingly for nearly 3 decades of my life, and the only explanations given to me were that, quote, the end justifies the means, and, quote, I was serving my country in their bold effort to fight communism.
Can you even comprehend growing up in a family that promotes this level of abuse and torture, of selling out you or your children to a network of baby blood drinking psychopaths to bring the ultimate purpose of a full dominance New World Order tyranny to planet Earth, to be able to continue with their sick, satanic behaviors, unconfronted and accepted to the known society, a world of fear, torture, and short lives? Are you willing to accept this reality that is getting closer to becoming reality? But the MK Ultra program is really not an efficient process due to the labor-intensive and follow-up needed with each MK Ultra asset. So enters nanotechnology and the Mind Control 2.0. And right after this break, we will be speaking with author and researcher Elana Freeland, who was decades now has been speaking on the new mind control via nanotechnology and the Internet of Things role in bringing this planet into a transhuman way of surviving.
Why don't we talk about people who sign contracts with the devil? What's your take at you're seeing how the MK Ultra works, and what's your experience been, Elisa, with the entertainment industry, and why it's important to have people who can be mind controlled in those positions?
This breakdown and overabundance of Illuminati symbology and sigils and information. They're indoctrinating the people who are watching this and following this and become fans. They're not only indoctrinating, they're desensitizing people. It's being shoved in everyone's faces, in every music video and every performance. I mean, really stop and take a look at some of these animated films that Disney's putting out. They are some of the most violent. The word sex was seen in the clouds in, one film. These men and women are extremely well-versed. They're magicians of sort.
Yeah.
They're casting spells and performing rituals to maintain what is at work here. For me and a lot of other MK Ultras that I've talked to, it's like stuff is just out of our reach, and we know it's there, but we couldn't reach out to it. We know there's something we need to do or something we need to say. People who are under this, including myself, you don't really think like other people do. And there are things that are literally sometimes blocked from your thought process. One of the first things that has to happen is we have got to do something for these children. They're still going day in, day out. They're being taken out, they're being killed, they're being raped. It hasn't slowed down. It's just going, business is going on as usual. So anyone that steps up and does something to save those children, if that's happening, that gives me tremendous hope.
Now joining us is Elana Freeland, author and researcher on these topics that we'll be discussing. Welcome, Elana.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. We just had Elise E., I know you know her, on, and she was giving her firsthand testimony of what it's like to be embedded with nanotechnology, or at least technology. And now we're going into this whole new world. But first, can you just kind of transition us from this old school MK Ultra trauma-based mind control to the new school of programming where that trauma and mind control is not needed anymore, and now you're looking at a mass level of microscopic nanotechnology controlling humans going forward in this world?
Yes, the old MK Ultra depended on drugs, hypnosis, and trauma. And usually the child, it usually started in early childhood, would be in a clinical setting, and there would be all sorts of shiny silver machines that the child would be hooked up to, along with electrodes over their skull. And there would be always the need to pull them in to where the special equipment is. What is going on now, and there is trauma for those who are targeted. And, we know about the term targeted individuals, but we don't really understand all of it because it never makes the news. And a lot of these people are not believed. They say they hear voices. They say a lot of things happen to them. And we think they're just sort of crazy.
And real quick here, Elana, from our research too, it's not just a handful. It's like over millions or plus millions of people who've gone through this level of trauma-based mind control purposefully. I mean, it's a much bigger issue, my point is, than most people realize.
Right. And what I'm saying, and probably not saying very well, is that we need to bring in the targeted individuals, even though they're not fully programmed like an MK Ultra victim would be in a clinical setting or even a remote setting, because what we're going to get to is how they're programming people remotely with the help of nanotechnology. But we need to bring the targeted individuals in too, because they too are, to some degree, and I'm still not clear if it's total, like splitting the personality. Do they split the personality of a targeted individual? Not always. Usually that person is just harassed and worn down and has to put up with either hearing voices or being gang stalked in the streets or at their place of work. it's a whole other motif, is what I'm saying. But it too is done remotely. And that one is very obviously done remotely. Now, with mind control, it's hard to imagine that they can actually do it while you're in your home, a child is sitting in school. It can be done because they have the equipment now by which they can pulse frequencies into the brain and force a programming and a split in the personality to take place as well. So that's the big difference, is it's mostly done remote now. Now, if they're doing special forces, which they do, if they're programming special forces at a military base or something, like near me, that's what they do there at the JBLM up here in the Pacific Northwest, then they can bring them in and have all the fancy devices and really do a wham-bam job on them. It doesn't have to take place remotely, except it will also be satellite connected when they're in the field and on an operation. So
I was
just going to say that that's all part of it, because initially the CIA said it started out mind control in order to create agents who could not divulge secret information. Now it has gone to where they're going to run society by the same type of thing.
It's 2.0, MK Ultra 2.0, really, and so
it really is.
So it's from a evil scientist perspective, it's more efficient, it's more effective in the sense that you don't have to traumatize the person directly or bring them in person. It could be also done remotely on the masses. So when did you discover that? When did you realize that this was the next level of programming and controlling humans? After, of course, MK Ultra has been around for a long time, for decades, for most who look into it.
Yeah, I'd say that as far as researching it, I started researching it in the late 80s, early 90s, when we had a lot of people, who were researching it. And remember, the internet sort of became public in the 90s, the early 90s. So as soon as I got a computer, I was all over it and looking at things. Of course, every login that you did was being recorded by the CIA. That I didn't know yet, but that was the big reason they gave us the computers, so they could begin to make watch lists. So I read a lot of guys, Jim Keith, Alex Constantine, Walter Boert wrote an amazing book, still is good, called Operation Mind Control. I was reading all these guys through the late 80s, the early 90s, and realizing how big this was. And at that time, it was all tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. Nobody wanted to hear what I had to say, of course. And now it's sort of happening in front of us, but we don't know really what we're looking at.
Yeah, we're seeing paper clips stick to people's arms who got injected. Even people who are not injected having metals stuck to their chest. So they're somehow getting this nanotechnology via other ways other than just injections. But so this seems to be the new way of programming. And before we get into how they actually can control people when they get enough payload in them of this microscopic atomic level nanotechnology, how is it being implemented that you're seeing, through the injections, through the sky? Maybe you could give us a little bit of a short understanding of how it's been happening. And it hasn't just been happening in this last year. It's been happening for a while, right? Correct?
It has, but I would say that this last year and a half has been the most open, where we're really seeing it. But we don't know what we're looking at. A lot of people, you hear them say, this is crazy, this is bizarre. I mean, people lining up to get the jab when all these reports are available that people are dropping like flies from this jab. So, there's got to be a programming going on. You bring up, I remember here in my town, if you bring up the word Trump back 6 months, even 6 months ago, people just come unglued. I mean, it's not rational. So once you get to those anomalies, which really don't make any sense, you probably are in the realm of mind control. but you just haven't put it together yet. It's hard to believe because you hear the word, most people hear the word mind control and they think, maybe they even think of the Manchurian movie with Frank Sinatra from long ago, and you think Korean warfare. But no, this is as common as white bread has been to any intelligence agent. They know that this is very widespread. They know all the trigger words. They know who's under what programming and what you can do with that. This is all clandestine, sub rosa. But it is something we all need to know something about, because now it's going to become very widespread. So the other part of your question, okay, so I look out at the people and I can see it, and there's no question in my mind. How did it get there? Well, the first work on it in the way it is now through the nanotechnology has been occurring for over 20 years with the geoengineering programs. They've been dropping things onto us to breathe in and eat. And we haven't been aware of it. We haven't been informed. We've been told that there's climate change, that there's global warming, that the SRM, the programs that they have going are to protect us. They're going to reflect the heat of the sun back into space, and we're going to cool down, and all this verbiage, which is really a cover story, as an intelligence agent would recognize it as, while they're getting nanotechnology into us. And that, when did I realize that? Well, I wrote that first book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. God, I started working on that in 2012. Published in 2014, and I recognized there was nanotechnology in it, but I didn't realize the extent of it. So you see how in writing these books, each book has sort of given birth to the next one, because I'm going deeper into the rabbit hole.
Well, you're looking at each injection now, they're saying estimating 50 billion, each injection now, 50 billion nanoparticles are being injected each person, but you're saying that's in a closed system in your body, but through an open system, through like when you breathe in through your lungs and it goes out your bowels and things like that. That's more of an open system, right? So it doesn't affect the full body as well. But now with the jab and with that, they're getting a full spectrum level of nanotechnology now in the bodies. Correct?
Well, what I would say is that. There's the hardware, there's the software, and there's the wetware. That's the way the CIA sees it. So the hardware has been implemented into us through the chemical trails primarily. And that includes chemicals, electromagnetics, and the nanotechnology. Now, the nanotechnology is a real sleeper. It's been out since the early 90s, late 80s. And the guy who founded it, who discovered the nanotechnology and had this great, very idealistic idea, if you can believe what you read, that nanotechnology would free us up so that we would have more leisure time. We wouldn't be constantly concerned with buildings, with creating anything like a desk or a computer. He saw that the nano, which let's explain that, a nano is a size name, and that's 1/1000th of a meter. So a nano itself, a nanoparticle, is 1/1000th of a meter. But what that can be used, there's natural nanoparticles in all the cosmos and here on Earth. But then what they're doing is they're taking atoms and laying them next to each other and building nanoparticles that are man-made. And these are then available you can use it for construction. You can use it for laying highways. You can use it for there's so many things. And Eric Drexler, the discoverer, was thrilled, but he also knew that in the wrong hands,
it could be very easily weaponized,
So
and
that's
what we're facing.
So that's the transhuman aspect of what you're saying is they're laying nanotechnology next to real atoms. So you got on a biology level, biologically, that nanotechnology is on an atom level next to it, so it almost becomes embedded with each other. They become one. That's the.
Well, no, the nanotechnology is atoms, and it's completely atoms, and from 1 to 100 is considered a normal nanoparticle. That's from 1 to 100 nanometers. That it would be measured in that way. But by going to the atom level, now you're in the what could be called the subatomic level, and that's where the danger lies. Is that you're really opening a threshold that has been closed. Sort of a Garden of Eden a caveat. Don't go there. Don't go to that. And we tend to think of that as only the genetics, that now they're going where they shouldn't go with genetics. No, the nanotechnology is in addition to that. And to my knowledge, I don't think that we've ever seen this kind of assault before, because we have not, humans, to my knowledge from history, humans haven't been able to get down to the atom level because you can't see it. You need special instruments for that.
That's why That's why doctors can't pick up on it. It can't be seen through MRIs and things like that because it's such a nano size. What's fascinating to me, Elana, is that you said that this technology is happening right now for 20 years. They could have been dropping billions, and I guess at this point, accumulatively, it would be trillions, and probably even more than that if there's another word for that.
Way beyond, yeah.
So apparently, we're getting payloads in our open systems here, but we're still functioning. You know, I mean, we may have a hell of a less of attention span, but majority of humanity is still functioning and still operating. So as this billions and trillions of payloads are coming through every day through our open system from the sky, they get washed out through our natural process, or do they stick permanently there? How does it actually build the payload to where people could start, or the elites could start manipulating, controlling people, if they even can?
No, good question. And what they do is they amalgamate with our tissues, our organs, our fat deposits, our proteins. No, they're in there. But your question about why haven't we heard anything about it all this time? Well, we have, but you haven't recognized it because once again, you lack the context. What's happening is, I would say, the American health now is in the worst situation it's ever been in, and that is mainly through the autoimmune diseases that are happening, which are being manipulated by the medical establishment, big pharma, et cetera. And so this is all worn down. Having taken in this technology, remember, it's a technology. It's partially organic and partially inorganic. And they can use anything from the periodic table, any of those elements, to make these atomic level nanoparticles. And then they can load them with computers and make them into nanobots. And so a lot of what's coming down is laying sort of a matrix, and I'm using that term intentionally, a matrix in our nervous system, conjunct with our nervous system, going all the way through the blood-brain barrier because it's so tiny, and really slowly sort of taking over. We haven't felt the effect in a direct way of mind control because they've lacked the 5G, 6G, 7G environment. Okay. And they are now rectifying that.
All right, so fascinating. So here we have the payload over the decades increasing, and I would assume when you get an injection of billions of nanoparticles into your closed system, it has a much more powerful effect in the body. I assume so, correct?
Well, and they've done research all these years. We've been getting hit. We've been ingesting the nanotechnology, but it's being slowly ramped up. And
Right.
slowly they're understanding how it interacts with the bios of our bodies, and how they can set it up, like, for example, in the BCI, the brain computer interface. That term now is bandied about a lot. And then what that means is hooking us up to computers. People have noticed how they may write an email to someone how they'd like to have a particular item, and boom, suddenly 6 ads appear. Well, imagine this, and this is happening now as well, that you think it, but you don't say it, and you don't write it in an email, and boom, here come the ads. That's the brain-computer interface, and that is happening through the nanotechnology that's in our bodies, because we resonate. Even though there's no wires, we now know what wireless looks like, no wires, and yet you can have long conversations with someone in London. That same thing, that same type of resonance happens when we are, to our nanobots, when we are hit with a signal that has a certain frequency. And so targeted individuals have more knowledge of this, because they're targeting a frequency for their brain. Somebody knows that, who's sitting on a laptop far away, and they are targeting this one individual. But now imagine that you could target an entire population via satellite computer, via triangulation with cell towers and cell phones, and you could actually bring a whole town to its knees, in the sense that everybody becomes very complacent, very sort of hypnotic, without realizing that this is happening remotely, because they think it's just them. They think they're doing it.
So that brings us to the triggering there too. So as we get this payload, you're saying that's the hardware, the nanotech bots are the hardware, and now the software is going to be the satellites, the 5G.
No, that's hardware
that's
too.
Hardware too. Okay, what's
that's
the software?
Hardware, but what you're seeing as of the vaccine, which is so-called gene therapy, whatever you want to call it, it's an assault.
Yeah.
And it is the software. That is software. But if I were a bad guy and I'm sitting in Colorado Springs on my laptop sipping a organic orange juice, and I'm targeting someone in Chicago remotely, I just need their evoked potential. Maybe I could have just their particular DNA frequency. This DNA, remember, is an antenna. And so if I get their frequency from some DNA test they took, then I can resonate whatever frequency I want to that person, and they will pick it up, because that's the thing about our beautiful, wonderful human bodies, is we are so vulnerable to resonance. You know, you can feel it when when the boom, boom, boom comes by of somebody with their speakers way up loud on, some rap music or whatever. And right away you can feel it. You're resonating with it. Right. So that's kind of the curse and the blessing of that quality of being a human being. It helps us to feel our environment, to feel our spiritual journey here on the earth. And yet at the same time, the bad guys can take it over.
So let me clarify, because I want to make sure I understand. So the hardware is a certain type of nanotechnology that's been dropped into us. We're all taking it into our open system for whatever period of time. It's getting to our blood barrier. And now the software being injected in these drug therapy or these nanobot transitions here, that is a different type of nanotechnology that is a triggering or a software that is, I'm just trying to distinguish, because I didn't even think about there's two different types of nanotechnology. One's hardware, one's software. But
yeah, and I understand that. It takes a while to get used to this. Yeah. But okay, so yeah, the nanobots are part of the hardware, but you named the other things, the cell towers, the satellites. All of that is in my second book, where I explain how we're under space fence lockdown. Space fence is a Lockheed Martin term. They run the space fence, and we all resonate to it. A word that we've heard that maybe gives an idea of is smart grid. We're all plugged into the smart grid, and by using the nanotechnology in us, that plugs us in. really big time. And now it looks to me like they're moving into another phase where they're cutting out a certain portion of human beings and programming them to want to be vaccinated with an entirely experimental. They've never even isolated this so-called virus, and everybody's lining up like lemmings to get it. And and then they notice that there's this magnetic thing. Well, that makes sense because we've got tons of magnetite in us. We've breathed that in for 2 decades. It's in our brain. It's in all our organs. So now you get these people off on another line of evolution, which has to do with turning them into machines. That's the way I see it.
All right. So in the process of turning the machines, you have the software injected through the jabs. You have the hardware built up. Now you have the other hardware, the 5G, the satellites. Now, where's the trigger going to be coming from? Because there has to be a frequency trigger for somebody, and we'll get into the behaviors, what it could look like. But what's the trigger? 5G.
Well,
somebody sitting with a remote control panel in his home saying, okay, go, Elana.
The 5G would not be the trigger. The 5G would transmit the trigger.
Transmit the trigger.
And the trigger will be a frequency that Big Pharma knows. Because when they did these vaccines, you know that it wasn't the same vaccine for all regions of the world that it's done it in. No way. They're going to go according to the geomagnetic current of that particular geographic area. This is why I call the book How the Environment Has Been Weaponized, because that geomagnetism of your area, like here I live in the Pacific Northwest, mine is going to be different from yours. And magnetic is the name of the game, which is why it was very wonderful when people were able to, see that shot had given them a magnetic entry point. So to do the whole thing, the software that goes in is really for that batch of people who are going that way. I'm not going that way because I'm not vaccinated. And I won't be vaccinated. So this is kind of sad because sort of inevitable as well, in that what they're doing is putting the machine in us. It isn't just us being plugged into the big machines out here like supercomputers or the D-Wave computers that are quantum computers, which are very different, by the way. It's not just that. It's that they're putting the machines, the little nano machines, into us. And now they're going to take over our nervous system, our circulatory system. All these systems will be taken over, but we're being remotely rebuilt, you might say, from out there somewhere. And not just Elana, but whole batches in certain geomagnetic areas. And it does sound like science fiction, like, how did this happen overnight? Well, they've been preparing for this for years. And I've been squawking and squawking and squawking for years about how this is going to be done and how we needed to wake up and, all of that.
So a frequency will be sent out from, let's say, Central Command, wherever that may be. 5G will take it to the human. The software, it'll go into the software of they'll go into the hardware of the metals and the nanotechnology in the human body. And then the software will then hear the frequency and then match the frequency or follow orders and tells the brain to do whatever the frequency is saying to do. For example, hate Trump or hate Biden or whatever it may be. So that's going to be the level of communication. So there has to be a two-way communication. There has to be a transmission going on, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because these are sensors as well, right? They admit that they're laying trillions of nanosensors in the upper atmosphere. That has been admitted by the military for years. But what isn't put together is that those sensors come down. They're everywhere. They're picking up all our biodata. They're picking up environmental data, and they're transmitting it to. For humans, it would be the fusion centers. Those play a huge role. And then those send it on to Utah, to the data center there that then records all of that. And meanwhile, all this data they're collecting, and this sounds weird to us, but it's true, that all this data is at this point in the evolution of this taking over humanity. The most important thing to them is to grab up as much data as possible to feed their computers so that the computers can evolve, because they want these computers to evolve to the point that many NASA scientists of the upper caliber, and I would call them Jason scientists. Jasons are a very elite group of scientists that very few people know exist. And the Jason idea is that we will be like Saturn by the time this is over. And Saturn looks to us like a dead planet, but there was a time when Saturn was very alive, so say many scientists who've studied the history, and that those rings around Saturn are very similar to the rings we now have around our planet that are talked about now and then, that are basically heavy metal nanoparticles that are intensely conductive. And this is sort of like a communication system. And at the same time, a lockdown system. We're all enclosed now in these rings that are forming around the planet, so that we are becoming part of the machine. You see what I mean? We won't even notice it. I mean, right now I will notice it. But in the generations that are being prepared right now, when they're getting up into their years, they will not notice it. This is the kind of programming that's happening.
So Earth is becoming the history of Saturn, and seems like it turned out too well for Saturn, though. And here the Earth is being manipulated to where artificial intelligence, you're saying, will become self-sustainable and thinking for themselves as it's running and analyzing everybody's individual components of decisions they make. But what worries me the most, this is just really, I can't believe I'm even talking about this right now, because it's just mind-boggling that this is actually occurring. And it looks like it will occur because no one's really just discussing this or talking about it. The more worried about who's president, who's not president. So Elana, so as this occurs, as more people become fuller of the software, fuller of the hardware, and this control system, this master control system is sending frequencies out, what will that look like for the average person as this evolves going forward at this point if we do nothing to stop anything? What's the day-to-day look like for them?
Right. And if they have their way, I'm sure you've heard it, the UN 2021, 2030, 2045, on and on. The idea that you'll own nothing and be happy. You will share everything with people, and your life will have conveniences. It won't be like a terrible poverty. But you won't really be thinking anything for yourself. You will just naturally acquiesce and fall under whatever the programming that is going on for your particular region or your particular town or your particular apartment building, however that looks. You will, they can give you, they won't even need happy pills anymore or antidepressants. They'll just frequency you because you're plugged in and kind of up your mood. And I think that we saw a little bit of that in 1984, as I recall, or maybe Brave New World. Those two books, I think everybody should reread them right now. So
people won't have a connection to a higher source anymore, to God. It will be more of a knee-jerk reaction to the frequency that's being plugged into them from an outside source. And so
the environment.
It sounds like a cyborg type of heavy slavery. And you could do what you will. You can have them as sex slaves. You can have them as worker slaves. You're creating a environment of happy-go-lucky slaves.
Yes, but slaves not as the slavery of America in the 19th century or slavery of the Russians.
Voluntary slaves, almost.
Yeah, voluntary slavery. That's a good term. And I think that it is very possible. And my sadness over this, because what I see is that people in general, as long as things are convenient and feel good, they don't do much. And I've never been like that. I'm sort of one of your driven people.
Yeah.
And I'm driven by truth, beauty, and goodness, by maintaining the highest caliber of humanity.
Meta values.
And evolving into that where it's natural, where Rudolf Steiner even says that the time could come when you can't even sleep at night knowing someone is in pain. That sort of humanity. We have, in this materialistic capitalist culture, we have chosen instead to just go with comfort and convenience. And now our masters are sort of rattling our cage and going, no, you're not going to have all that. And we're going, but that's our freedom. Well, yeah, it's freedom, but it's a very low form of freedom that we've been allowed to sort of convenience ourselves to death, comfort ourselves to death, and we haven't really taken care of business. So we've lost any democratic impulse that could have been in this nation.
They're swiping out one matrix for another. So Elana, what's fascinating to me is how this gets played out, and there'll be these happy slaves, let's say, for example, or miserable slaves. They can do whatever they want to them. But what about the people who are the slave masters? Why are they not affected by this ring around the earth and the nanotechnology being dropped? And if they're in charge of the control, right, of sending out frequencies to manipulate people, why are they not affected by it? Or is AI going to be running this and running them as well? Or there's a hierarchy within slavery here?
That's a great question, because I believe that they will be run by AI eventually. And I think they don't believe that, and they're going to see. But the movie that pre-programmed me for thinking along these lines was Elysium, which was a sci-fi film of several years ago. And what was it true there was that all the slaves of humanity were the ones building the machines they needed and all that were on the earth, which was trashed. And above was a new planet that they had created for the elites. And and all the slaves on the earth were always yearning and hungering to be on that planet, because they had these great med beds in which you could lie and your entire body would be reconfigured, and you would be 10 years younger or whatever. And so to me, that's the answer to your question about the elites, is they don't live like us. We live entirely differently from them, and they don't raise their children like us either.
And they don't eat
their children.
They don't eat the same foods, and they don't have.
And their children don't watch TV, because that's a programming device, and they don't watch TV. So they live very differentely, and they keep that as secret as they can with disinformation and all these.
And all we know is that they may already have the antidote to the buildup of nanotechnology that, like you said, flushes it out immediately, and there's no effect. We have no idea.
They do, but we're working on it too. And what we have discovered is that there are certain things that chemically and magnetically that the nanotechnology can be taken out of the body.
I do want to talk about that. In fact, we're going to spend a good portion of the rest of the show just on what we can do. But before we go there, I do want to talk a little bit about the direct energy weapons, because this is what I've read up on, is how they're going to manage the process during this this frog in the warm water, happy voluntary slavery, cyborg-like world we're moving into. But they've been using direct energy weapons, and I thought you could maybe share a little bit how they're using the nanotechnology to assist with the direct energy weapons, at least identifying people, and what are some of these DEWs?
Well, that's a good question too. The DEWs for me were pretty easy to understand which ones were which a while back. But now I realize, because of the nature of this military technology that we have been sold as convenience items, I realize that they are all dual use. And what dual use means is they are military and they are also civilian. And so take, for example, your cell phone. The cell phone is very convenient, very clever, and many people are completely addicted to it. And that cell phone, to me now, is totally a directed energy weapon.
Radiation is pouring out of it. You can measure it with
well, radiation,
meters,
yes, but that's not the worst of it. The radiation is not the worst of it. No, the worst of it is that you are being pulsed with programming through your cell phone, and you don't even know
frequencies. Frequencies are coming in.
Pulsing. Yes, yes. And so,
for example, like what could it be? Like what type of frequency?
It could be a mood. It could be a mood. It could be your memory. You just don't have a memory anymore. It could be your attitude towards someone. It really doesn't matter. It is with everything has a frequency. That's the important part. And to be in the in crowd that runs things in this world, that's one of the draws, is learning. You would have access to those frequencies so that you could do just about anything to anyone that you wanted. There's the frequency problem, and the pulsing goes through the phone. Take your 60 hertz in the walls. You're basically in a sort of reverse Faraday cage. And so if a targeter wants to target you, they can target you through your TV, your computer, the 60 hertz in the walls, the smart meter on your outside of your house, the fiber optics up your sidewalk leading to the sidewalk and street outside. You see what I mean? We're living in an electromagnetic world that if the guys who have the frequency and the knowledge of how this technology works, and we're just little old biological species here with these wonderful brains that are very sensitive to electromagnetic frequency and pulsing. So it's a done deal. That's why, if I want to think about directed energy weapons like microwave guns that they use for targeting people, and radar can go through walls and
drones,
radiate you. Drones, those are all military obvious weapons. But what about the unobvious ones? The ones that we think of as being our conveniences. They're dual use. And the dual use factor comes up again and again and again in my books, because this is the problem. We have bought into a wireless world that is going to control us all the way is how I see it.
Apparently, it's already happening. I mean, whether they put the software in the flu vaccines years ago, or people definitely are acting differently, and not to mention the attention span is down to 8 seconds. Tells you that our brains must be loaded with nanotechnology, distracting us. And affecting us. Dementia being one of the leading causes of death now in some countries, and so, like you're saying, this is an accumulative effect of this barrage of nanotechnology for decades now. I'm just really shocked. I don't know what to say that this is a reality, and see. But when you hear this, it makes so much sense. But what I do want to say before we get into some solutions here, if we even have any, I want to say, I do believe these elitists who do have access, because what we're hearing from a lot of different people coming out now, they're being told in secret meetings, it's us or them. You got to pick a side here. You either go with this transhumanism and be one of the guys controlling and having these slaves for you later on, or you're going to be one of them and you're going to be eventually killed or be enslaved, one or the other. That literally are being said in meetings across the world, not just here. So lines are being drawn in the sand here. But what you're suggesting, too, is there's an AI component, an artificial intelligence component here that's becoming to where it could become alive of its own, that even these poor, misguided psychopaths, that they will be subjected to this as well. Because, I always say when you make a deal with the devil, there's no honor between thieves.
No.
So you're saying that they also, as they're believing that they're being told a sale of goods here, that they'll be enslaving humanity, that they can be part of this process as well.
Yes, and I would say that it is, like you saying, it is not in the future. I would not use the future tense. I would say it's already happening. We're seeing them, these machine-like men and women who are making these decisions for humanity. We're seeing that that there is something else. A lot of people will import aliens. I don't feel I need to do that because the machine learning quantum computers are alien enough. And I always answer that about the alien thing, because a lot of people think that I'm stopping too short, and that, you know, it's obvious that it's an off-planet intelligence that's doing this. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I do know that if you abandon your humanity, that makes you human. You know, we all have to decide what that means. It's more than having 2 arms and 2 legs and a head. It is what you do as a human being, whether you're of the low caste of the human being who's taking what they can get because they're so damaged that they just can't pull it together any other way, or you're a human being seeking to be a moral being and treat others as you would be treated yourself, etc. It doesn't matter. But if you abandon that struggle to be human, then the law of nature, which is that a vacuum abhors being empty, something will come into it. And what will that something be? Now, if you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, you quickly realize that we have a very narrow aperture into the world as far as our senses go. Our little tiny bit that we can see into electromagnetic spectrum is next to nothing. We can see color in our spectrum. We can see 3-dimensional objects. We can see 2-dimensional objects, but we cannot see any further. We can't see into the gamma rays. We can't see into the microwave and radio waves at the far end of the spectrum. We are very limited. So there are other entities in this world. There have to be, and they're not just as we've called them, germs or viruses or bacteria. They have their own species. They have their own type of body, which is not like ours, which is very physical. I mean, you look at plasma, and I've had to study plasma quite a bit in order to write these books. Plasma is matter, but it's sort of a foggy, murky, fiery element. It's the 4th state of matter. So these entities can have different bodies, and they can slip into people who abandon their humanity. In that way, I do see that a lot of these people, like Bill Gates, like, you know, just the names, who have abandoned their humanity, and they are being run by something else.
Well, you know, interesting. You bring in a whole nother level of what, you know, history and religions have been talking about when it comes to possession. And the possessed and the falling. And it's amazing how science kind of intercedes with history and religion. And that's, of course, for another subject and another topic, which we'll be discussing, I believe, in the coming frequency wars on the alien variable. But Elana, let's give humanity some hope. Okay, what can we talk about? First of all, what we can do about these nanotechnology that's in our bodies, and then perhaps an overall hope, because I believe it's our connection with God is everything. If you want to say source, Christ energy or Christ, Jesus, right, Buddha, whatever it is that you believe, a higher power of love and connection, that sense of grace and that just feeling of peace, that to me is the ultimate solution. But before we go there, let's talk about what we could do on a practical terms of shaking off these trillions of nanotechnology.
Well, the first thing that that we have to do is really examine our lifestyle. We live in a very material world here in America, and we've been conditioned and programmed by it to think that this is our birthright, that we should all have air conditioning, we should all have heat, we should all have a car, we should all have all these things. And what we need to really examine carefully is really how much do we need that is electromagnetic? Because it's the electromagnetics that's going to kill us. That bottom line, biologically kill us. It will slowly eat away we are not electromagnetic beings. I know some people say we are, but they've got it wrong. We have an ether body. We have ether. And ether was a scientific concept that was banned in the United States in the 1920s. Even Einstein was using the term ether before he was disallowed from using it anymore. So were they wrong? Well, is there no ether? Well, it's the entire universe is filled with ether, and that is a life force. That's elan vital. Wilhelm Reich called it orgone. Everybody's had their
of
term.
that empty space in each atom, right?
Yes, because the ether is life, pro-life. Electromagnetism is not pro-life; it's anti-life, as the biosphere goes, as bios goes. So we have to examine how many of these fancy, Alexa type things do we need when they are all microphones, even your own television. See, I've never owned a television. I've never owned a cell phone. I own a computer because I'm a writer, and it makes it way easier than typewriters and and carbon paper.
You minimize your access to the electromagnetic experience.
Yes, and so I have a landline, and it takes messages. Does somebody need to contact me 24/7 every day, every minute? No, they don't. So I have not grown accustomed to a certain level of convenience that I think is my birthright. I try to live on the edge so that I'm in control of my technology, not vice versa. And that's the first thing people need to know. Example, very subtle. Don't sleep on a bed with metal in it, because the metal will be very handy if there are
impulses,
different frequencies going through. Yes. So I sleep on a wood slat bed with a futon. And if you don't like a futon, you can get a foam mat, whatever. I'm saying start looking at electromagnetism, and don't give me that story of, I've never liked science. Well, what are you doing living in this era then? This era is loaded with science. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
Next, to look at your diet. One thing I know about nanotech is the nanos in your body love acidity, because acidity is like electromagnetism, and they love electromagnetism. So you don't want to be eating an acidic diet. You want a diet that's going to make your body have the right ratio of alkalinity. And then you don't get sick, because sickness always has acidity, always. I haven't been to a Western doctor, since I was 13 years old. I'll be 74 this month.
Wow.
So I've been a health nut all these years because I didn't want to be a broken down old lady. And so I found out from Chinese medicine how to keep my immune system strong. And that's why I'm talking about your diet, is you want to look at what you're eating. Are you in a hurry? Don't eat. Eat when you can just relax. Really look at what you're eating. Again, you don't want to be eating glyphosate. So if you're going to eat bread, then have organic bread. And even, the organic foods now are loaded with the fibers. Buy a little microscope, 60 power, $7 on the internet, on Amazon or eBay or something. And it's 60 power. And take it with you to the grocery store. And if you want proof of what I'm saying about these nanobots, just start looking at the fruits and vegetables in the organic section or the other sections, GMO sections, and you will see billions and billions of fibers. And those fibers are carrying the nanobots.
And those fibers, those little thread fibers, we're seeing on masks, in diapers. Yes. We're seeing when you heat them up with that. People are doing experiments where you can see that. And they seem to be growing when they're around radiation.
That's right. They love electromagnetism. And that's why you need to examine, that's one reason you need to examine your lifestyle. So there's the food, there's the lifestyle. If you have items, your car radio, do you just love new cars? They have how many hundreds of computers in them?
Yeah.
Start thinking electromagnetically so that you can protect your bio body. That's why they're doing this to us, is they want another kind of body for the secret space program that Catherine Austin Fitts talks about. And she's right. There is a secret space program going on, and they want to be able to take a human being into space who can get past the Van Allen radiation belts. At this point, we're too fragile, too frail, or they'd have to lead line all the rockets or whatever they're taking up.
So these radiation belts were built by us, by the nanotechnology surrounding it. That's the ring you're talking about?
No, there were others. There were other radiation belts that sort of protect us from solar, from CMEs.
Okay, I understand.
But we did create one or two, I don't remember which, during the 50s when we were blowing off atomic bombs up there.
Right. So, great. So so they wanted to adapt humans to be able to get past this radiation belts by using technology, I assume.
For the physical, and then for the mental, to be able to encounter intelligences in the universe, they need a BCI model, a brain-computer interface model. They're going to use an AI model, but with a human being who's been altered.
Right.
I mean, that's the dream. And that has to do with, I always forget his name, so I'm going to cheat.
Yeah.
With the Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev's 3 phases of technological achievement for any civilization aspiring to a space age. Number 1, full spectrum dominance of the planet that you're living on. Number 2, control over your star. That would be our sun, and they're already doing a lot of control over our plasma sun. And number 3, control over our galaxy and its systems, which sounds like hubris to me.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they really believe it. And that's one of the reasons.
And they're intending it to happen, and it looks like it's in the process of happening because no one knows to stop it. So right. Last 5 minutes of the show, Elana, let's talk about what does role of spirituality, from your perspective, play in a solution to this transhumanism that we find ourselves in the middle of?
Oh, I think it's everything. I call it consciousness so that it, because a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction to the words religion and spirituality. But for me, take, for example, the nanobots. They have a consciousness, but it's a group consciousness. They have what's being called a swarm consciousness.
A Borg.
They come together, and they will move together without any remote control. They are like that. So they have that consciousness. That's a pretty inferior consciousness, and I have a greater consciousness because I'm a human being, and I have spent most of my life developing that consciousness. I haven't been a couch potato or a TV freak or whatever. I have spent a lot of time reading, thinking, etc., writing, and so I have this dream, and it's just a dream at this phase. But I'll share it with you, that I could actually speak to these nanobots in me and say to them, desist, stop that, do not do that, do not respond to your masters over there with the computers. You respond to me because this is my environment and you're a guest in it. That sort of thing, to really take hold of the reality, because these things are half alive. They're machines, but they're also half alive. And that's what I'm counting on, is that I will have some consciousness over these beings.
Through the power of intention and the power of your consciousness and to your creator, you can have dominion over the nano consciousness, because now you're cut out the middleman. You're communicating from one consciousness to another. I think that's brilliant. That's just brilliant.
Well, for me, it may be good because I'll be able to do it. I have that kind of intention that I've developed. Sure. I have that kind of consciousnly. Right. But for the masses, I feel very sad. But that's how it is. And so all the questions aren't answered yet. We're just beginning to look at it. Those of us who know about nanotechnology, we're also experimenting with magnetism. They can be commanded with magnetism. I'm taking baths of Epsom salt, sea salt, borax, and baking soda to create an electrolytic bath of alkaline nature. And that can drive them out if you're willing to do that. And the fellow who's working on that most is Tony Pantalaresco. Long Italian name.
Infrared saunas, I hear, are helpful as well.
Yes,
right.
There are things that we need to look at ourselves as beakers and labs now and start working, because our masters and the experts they've bought off, either with fear or money and position, are not coming forward to help us.
No, we're on our own on that level, but I will say we're on our own from that perspective. But as you mentioned earlier, we have God and our connection to God, and that really comes down to the bottom line.
Well, and we are divine beings.
Yes.
We are divine beings. The human being is not a wetware, as they call us. Wetware. I'm serious. We are a divine human being.
And mighty powerful spiritual beings at that.
Yes.
Elana Freeland, I want to thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experience, your research, your expertise in this scary conversation, because most people are unprepared. But because of you, we are more prepared today than ever before. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys, don't forget, always remember to live free, stay awake, and keep raising that frequency. Until next time.
Thank you for watching Frequency Wars, brought to you by the UI Media Network at uimedianetwork.org, the home of innovative, uncensored, conscious media. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at UI Media Network. And be sure to sign up free at uimedianetwork.org to watch all of our uncensored content. See you next time on Frequency Wars, the next revolution. The UI Media Network and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.